Alright, now let's look at how to do box plots on a graphing calculator. Now I'm going to use the TI-83. The TI-84 is either done exactly like this, or some of them, the newer versions have a more menu-driven process, which will be a little bit easier. Anyway, so let's get started. The first thing you want to do is, before you graph something, is to see whether or not everything is cleared. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this y equals right here. Now y equals is for graphing equations, right? So whenever you see the y equals, if you're going to graph an equation. Now we're not graphing equations, we don't want equations, so I'm just going to delete these or clear these. And the way you do that is, here's the clear button right here. I'm going to hit clear. I'm going to move the cursor right. The reason I'm going to move the cursor is anywhere on this first line, and I'll just hit clear. And here's, well, what if I did here? If I hit there, it won't work. But if I go anywhere there, it'll clear it, and it'll clear the whole thing. And that's all I want all these clear. The next thing I'm going to do is go to stat plot. Stat plot is what we're going to use today. You can actually do 4 different plots, either at one time or in different times. But the first thing we want to do is we want to just turn them all off. If you notice, this is off, off, off. This one's on. So I'm just going to go enter there. I'm going to move the cursor to see this, how you move the cursor around. I'm just going to move the cursor so it's at off, and then hit enter. And then I can quit or clear there, and then I'm good. So now what I want to do is I want to enter my data. And the way you enter data is you go to the stat button right here, and you hit stat and edit. What stat edit does is gives you like a spreadsheet, and it may have data in it or it may not. If you have data in there and you don't want the data there, then you can move this cursor around. If you just want to delete one individual entry, you put it on that entry and hit delete there. If you want to clear all of them, you can move the cursor up to the very top up here, right there, and then I'm just going to hit clear and then enter, and that clears everything out. Now what I want to do is put my data in. So I have some data already that I already know that I'm going to put in. So you just put the type in the numbers, hit enter. Hit enter. Now let's say you didn't hit enter. I went 45 and then 78. Well, that's not the right one, so I can go back up and I can either clear or delete. Oh, clear doesn't work, so let's try delete. So that's what I would encourage you to do with graphing calculators. Just try some, see if you get the right result, play around with it a little bit. So if I messed up, to mess up, you go up here, you hit clear. That's to clear one individual. I'm sorry, hit delete, and then that's to delete one individual. So let's go ahead and go back down. 45, 78, 36. Alright, so now what we do is we want to do the actual box plot. So you're going to hit second stat plot again. Hit enter. Now I want to actually graph this, so I'm going to go from off to on. So I get the cursor and make it blinking over the on. I'm going to hit enter. Now if you notice, that's highlighted. Then I have 6 different graphs to choose from. There's actually 2 different box plots. There's a box plot here and a box plot here, and they're basically the same. Small difference. We're going to use the second box plot, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th individual graph here. In the next video, we'll talk about how we can use the other one. It's just a slight different. Now the next one, X list, that tells you which column of variable you're going to use, which column numbers. The default here is L1. That's our first column. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to be ready to graph it. It doesn't look quite right. And what you want to do is we want to zoom in and out so that we can see our entire graph. So what I want you to do is go to the zoom menu here. And you have a lot of different choices, but 2 I want you to memorize. One is called standard zoom. If you look zoom 6, you can either go down there or just hit a 6 in. That's a zoom that's going to make sense for most equations, at least as a starting point. And then the other one is zoom 9. If you go down, keep going down to zoom 9 here, that's zoom stat. That gives you the basic zoom that you're going to want to use whenever you're doing a statistical graph. Now you can still play around with the zoom, but that's the place you want to start. So I'm just going to hit enter there. If you notice, I get a nice graph there. Now the graph, the scale is not obvious here, but you get at least the shape. And so what I want to do is I want to try to draw that out more or less the way that it looks here. And I want you to point out a couple different points. This line right here is going to represent the 25th percentile, and this the median or 50th percentile, and this the 75th percentile. And then this tail that comes out here, the end of the tail is going to be the minimum value and the maximum value. So this gives you a good sense of what the shape looks like, but without the numbers. So to find the numbers, you're going to use the trace button. So there's the trace button right there. And it gives you a cursor that you can move around. That'll hop to these 5 numbers, and then you just write those numbers down. So let's see what we can read here. Here, the minimum is going to be 12. And the 25th is going to be, oh, that's interesting. The 25th percentile is 25. That's just kind of interesting. The median here, or the 50th percentile, is going to be 42. And the 75th percentile is going to be 78. And then the maximum here is going to be 99. So what you can do here is when you plug these numbers in and then draw the graph, you can then use trace to get the actual values here. Let's do another example, and then let's put 2 graphs on the same one. So let's quit from here, and let's go back to our stat plot. I'm going to turn off the first one. I'm going to keep the information there. I'm just going to turn it off so it doesn't graph. And then I'm going to go to stat here and edit, and I'm going to put in some more numbers in the second column. And then give me a second here to type my numbers in. Remember, you type the numbers that you want and hit enter. And for the next observation, do the same thing. There you go. Now, when you do this by hand, the numbers need to you need to order the numbers, but the calculator does that for you, so you're not going to need to do that on a calculator or a computer. So now let's go to stat plot up here and go to the second one. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to turn this one on. We're going to use the fifth or the second box plot here, the fifth actual one. Now here's what's different. Here the X list, usually the default is going to be L1. But I don't want L1 here. I want the second column, and the second column is going to be L2. So L2 is actually a shift above the 2 button. So I'm going to shift L2. Oops. Let's clear all that. So I'll go shift L2. And now I've got the right thing, and the frequency we're not going to use. So let's see. We put the on cursor. That's right. Got the right graph, and we have the right column. So now we can graph this. Now if we graph this, that would be fine, but then we might have to zoom it. So you can actually skip hitting the graph and hit zoom 9, and it's going to give you the graph exactly the way we want it. Now how do you find those values? You go to trace, and you can move the cursor around to find the different values. One thing about box plots that's useful is you can look at 2 plots at the same time of 2 different variables and compare them. So what we're going to do is we already have the second one on. Now we're going to turn the first one on. We're going to use the same data that we used before, L1, and the same box plot, but now we're going to we're just turning it from off, then we're going to turn it to on. So let's hit zoom 9 again, and then what it does, it gives you the 2 different plots. And let's actually zoom in so we can see that a little bit. You can see how we can see the 2 plots together. Anyway, that's how you do box plots.